No, this can't be real. What is that? Oh God, this isn't true.
Hearing that one name made everything click into place for me. I was standing in my kitchen on a gray Tuesday morning, staring at a bank statement I had almost thrown away, when my husband said her name out loud for the first time. Not by accident either. He said it like I was supposed to already know it, like I was the only person in the room who had been left out of the joke. And in that instant, every strange late night, every cold glance from my son, every half-finished excuse started lining up in my head. I remember the coffee going cold beside me. I remember the dryer humming in the basement. I remember how quiet the whole house felt after he spoke, because even the air seemed to understand I was finally close to the truth. Mark didn't look at me when he said it. He was reading something on his phone, one elbow on the counter, like the rest of my life was just background noise. That bothered me more than his tone. It was the casualness, the way men like him can destroy a woman without raising their voice. I kept my face still, but inside I was already pulling at every loose thread. Why would he say that name now? Why did Ethan go silent the second it came up? And why did I suddenly feel like the last person in my own family to understand what was really going on? I reached for the bank statement again, careful not to crease it, and saw the transfer date one more time. April 17. The same night Mark claimed he was in a client dinner on the South Side. The same night he came home smelling like hotel soap and expensive perfume. I had ignored that detail before because I wanted peace more than I wanted answers. That was my mistake. I had spent so many years being the kind of wife who excused things that should have ended marriages. And the worst part is I knew it. I knew when a story sounded off. I knew when a smile was fake. I knew when a silence was too heavy to be innocent. But I kept choosing denial because it was easier than admitting my family was turning into strangers in front of me. Ethan walked into the kitchen just then, still half asleep, hair messy, phone in hand. He glanced at the paper in front of me and stopped like he'd hit a wall. He didn't ask what it was. He already knew. That was what hurt most. Not surprise, not confusion, recognition. His eyes dropped to the floor, and for 1 second, he looked exactly like his father. Mark finally looked up, and I saw it again in his face too. That tiny flicker people get when they realize the lie has outlived the moment that created it. He slid his phone into his pocket and said, too calmly, "We need to talk later." Later. That word. That one word told me more than his whole marriage ever had. It meant the story had been planned around me. It meant there were conversations happening in my house when I wasn't in the room. It meant my son had heard things he shouldn't have heard. I looked at both of them, one after the other. And I did something I hadn't done in years. I stopped asking myself how to keep the peace. Instead, I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest for months. What exactly were they hiding from me? I didn't ask again that morning. I learned years ago that if you push Mark too soon, he turns everything into a lecture and makes you feel childish for having feelings. So I stood there with the bank statement in my hand, watched Ethan fill a glass of water at the sink, and listened to the quiet like it was trying to warn me. After he left for school, I went back to the table and opened my laptop. At first, I only meant to check our joint accounts. That was routine for me. I handled the bills, the groceries, the insurance, the kind of invisible work people praise and never really see. But then I found the transfer pattern. Same amount, same day of the week, same destination. It wasn't random. It was disciplined, planned. My husband had been moving money for almost 4 months without telling me, and every trail pointed to a separate business account under a name I didn't recognize. Then I saw it. 3 letters from a company name that meant nothing to me at first. I clicked the folder where I had saved old statements, then another, then another. There it was again, on an invoice. Then again on a receipt from a hotel in Naperville. Same company. Same dates. Same lies. My stomach tightened so hard I had to sit back and press a hand to it. Because Mark didn't just know the name. He had said it out loud before. Not to me, to her. By noon, I was in the car driving to Evanston to see my sister Dana. I didn't tell Mark where I was going, and I didn't answer his first 2 calls. The sky was low and ugly, full of that flat Chicago gray that makes every building look tired. Wind slapped the side mirror. A bus hissed at the curb. I kept one hand locked on the wheel and the other around my phone, as if either one might keep me from falling apart if I let go. Dana opened her door before I could even knock. She took one look at my face and stepped aside. "He said her name, didn't he?" she asked. I looked at her. That was enough. She didn't smile, didn't gasp, didn't give me one of those fake comforting faces people use when they don't want the truth. She just turned and walked me into her kitchen, where the smell of burnt toast and strong coffee hung in the air. I laid the statement on the table, and she read it in silence. Her eyes moved fast. Then they stopped. "Lily," she said, tapping the page, "this isn't just an affair." I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. That's what I was afraid of. She reached for her phone and opened a message thread, then showed me a photo someone had sent her weeks earlier. It was blurry, taken from across a parking lot, but I recognized Mark immediately. He was standing outside a restaurant in Oak Park with Sloane Mercer, one hand on the small of her back, the other holding a black envelope. The woman beside him was younger than me by at least 10 years, maybe more. Blonde hair, shiny lips, a tight white coat, and the kind of smile that says she's convinced the world owes her something. There was nothing subtle about her. She looked exactly like the kind of woman Mark would mistake for excitement. Dana zoomed in on the photo, and my eyes landed on the envelope. It had my name on it. I don't know how long I stared before I noticed my hands had gone numb. Dana's voice got quieter. "Do you see it?" I did. I saw the writing, the neat black lettering, the same way Mark addressed every official document in our house. And beneath my name, half hidden by his thumb, was a hospital logo. For a moment, all I could hear was the refrigerator motor and the weak tick of Dana's old wall clock. A hospital envelope. My name, Mark Sloane. There are certain moments when your body knows something before your mind does. Mine went cold all at once. It wasn't fear exactly. It was the feeling of standing on the edge of a staircase and realizing one more step could send you falling. Dana reached across the table. "What did he tell you?" "Nothing," I said, though that wasn't true. He had told me plenty, just never enough to make sense. Until now. Then my phone lit up again. "Mark." I let it ring. A second later, a text came through. "Don't go digging into things you don't understand." I stared at those words until they blurred. Because that was the part that got under my skin the most. Not the warning itself, the fact that he sounded afraid. Mark never sounded afraid. He sounded annoyed, superior, impatient. He sounded like a man who always believed he was in control. But this text felt different, tight, rushed, almost desperate. Dana saw my face and said, "Whatever this is, it's bigger than you think." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked back down at the photo on her phone, at the black envelope in Mark's hand, and then at my own reflection in the dark kitchen window. I looked tired, older, smaller than I remembered. And for the first time that day, I asked myself a question I should have asked months ago. If my husband was hiding this much, what else had he already decided I didn't deserve to know? That question stayed with me all the way home. And when I pulled into the driveway and saw a silver car parked in front of my house that definitely hadn't been there that morning, I knew my real answer was waiting inside. The silver car belonged to Sloane. I knew it before I even reached the porch, because the driver's side door was still open and her perfume hit me before I saw her. Sweet, expensive, impossible to ignore. My stomach turned so hard I had to grip the railing for a second just to keep my balance. Through the front window, I could see Mark standing in the living room with his sleeves rolled up, while Ethan sat on the edge of the couch like he was waiting for an outcome he already hated. I stepped inside and the air changed. Nobody spoke at first. The only sound was the low hum of the dishwasher and the click of rain against the back window. Sloane stood near the fireplace in a cream coat, one hand resting lightly on the back of a chair, like she was trying to look casual in a house she had no right to enter. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Lily," she said, as if we were friends. I looked at Mark. Why is she in my house? He dragged a hand down his face. Because this is over. That sentence hit the room like a dropped glass. Ethan looked up fast, his jaw tight. Sloane's smile disappeared. And Mark, for the first time since I had known him, looked like a man who had run out of excuses. He walked to the table, picked up the black envelope I had seen in Dana's photo, and set it in front of me. Open it. I didn't move. Open it, he repeated, louder this time. So I did. Inside were hospital records, a custody file copy, and a folded DNA report with one line highlighted in yellow. My fingers trembled so badly I almost tore the paper. Paternity cannot be confirmed between Mark Harper and Ethan Harper. For a second, I couldn't hear anything but my own breathing. Then another page slipped free. A note from the hospital. A clerical error. A switched sample. A name from years ago. A mistake that had never been corrected. The truth landed slowly, then all at once. Ethan wasn't Mark's biological son. He looked at me, then away, as if he had known this was coming and still wasn't ready to face it. Mark started talking fast after that, words spilling out in a way that made him sound smaller, weaker, almost pathetic. He said he found out years ago. He said he thought keeping it quiet was better for everyone. He said Sloane had helped him handle it. He said the boy was still his in every way that mattered. But Ethan's face changed when Mark said that. Not anger, not sadness. Shame. And that hurt more than anything. Because it told me he had known part of the truth too. Maybe not all of it, but enough. Enough to become cruel. Enough to follow Mark's lead when it was easier than asking hard questions. Enough to let me carry the weight alone while they all protected the lie. I turned to Ethan. You knew? He swallowed hard and looked at the floor. I knew something was wrong. Something? My voice cracked on the word. He said nothing. That silence was its own confession. Sloane stepped forward then, finally losing the polished calm she had been wearing like perfume. I told him not to bring you into it, she said, looking at Mark. I told you this would blow up. So that was it. Not just betrayal, coordination, planning. Two adults deciding that I was easier to deceive than to trust. I picked up the report and folded it carefully. The paper felt colder than it should have. How long have you known? Mark didn't answer right away. That delay told me enough. 4 years, he said finally. 4 years. I almost laughed, but the sound that came out was closer to a breath breaking apart. 4 years of birthday cakes, school plays, car repairs, grocery lists, Christmas mornings, all of it wrapped around a truth they had kept hidden from me like I was too fragile to handle my own life. I stood there, very still, and I could feel something inside me shift. Not break. Shift. There was pain, yes, but also a kind of clarity I had never felt before. It was the feeling of seeing a room in full light after living in the dark too long. I looked at Mark. You let me believe I was the problem. He didn't meet my eyes. I looked at Ethan. And you let me believe you hated me for no reason. That one landed. I could see it in his face. His mouth tightened, his eyes reddened. He wanted to speak, but he had built himself on too much silence to know where to begin. The rain picked up outside, tapping harder now against the glass. I slipped the DNA report into my bag, then picked up the black envelope and held it between 2 fingers. You should have told me when you found out. Mark took a step toward me. Lily, wait. But I was already backing away. No, I said. You don't get to ask me to stay now. Sloane let out a sharp, nervous breath. Ethan stood up halfway, then stopped, like his body wanted to follow me, but his pride wouldn't let it. I walked to the front door, opened it, and let the cold Chicago air hit my face like a warning and a relief at the same time. Then I turned once, just once, and said the only thing that mattered. I'm done carrying your secrets. And for the first time in that house, nobody had anything left to say.